a judge that ruled against the Trump administration and then was targeted with death threats, over the weekend had her house mysteriously catch on fire. And I say mysteriously, okay? I mean, I don't think it's much of a stretch to say that this could have been an act of arson. We don't know for sure. But boy, is it suspicious. Okay, this could be the latest example of right-wing political violence in this country. Okay, South Carolina Circuit Court Judge Diane Goodstein had her $1.1 million home burned down on Sunday. Goldstein was apparently not home. She's out walking her dogs. You know, again, thankfully for her, right? But not so good for her family. At least 3 members of which, including her husband, a former Democratic state senator, Goodstein, and their son, both have been hospitalized with serious injuries. Yikes. According to the St. Paul's Fire District, which responded to the scene, the occupants had to be rescued via kayak. Law enforcement has not disclosed whether the fire is being investigated as an arson attack right now. So, I don't know. You know, I understand why they're not saying that this, oh, yeah, no, this is, you don't have the facts, right? You do have to investigate that. I'm just saying, from my perspective, from my opinion, where there's smoke, there's fire. Literally. Okay? Look, it's not like there's, you know, no, like, a connection or anything like that. Remember, the 69-year-old judge had been receiving death threats in the weeks leading up to this fire, according to multiple sources, speaking to South Carolina news outlet Fitz News. Okay? Now, what happened? Why? Well, Goodstein had temporarily blocked the state's election commission from releasing the voter files to the DOJ. The DOJ. So, now, when that happened, that enraged MAGA. In fact, you had Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights. I know, I laugh. Harmeet Dillon openly criticizing her decision. While Trump decided to run to the rubber stamp Supreme Court, who later reversed that ruling. So they ended up winning anyway, I mean, overall. But apparently not enough to even stand against Trump, even though the Trump administration still won this battle. Not enough. No, we got to go burn this woman's house down. Well, okay, I don't know if that's true, right? But definitely they did send death threats. Okay? Look, the Department of Justice, by the way, they were looking for names. They were looking for addresses, driver's license numbers, social security numbers of over 3 million registered voters. Why would they do that? Why did they need that information? Well, they claim that we're just trying to stop illegals from voting, from registering to vote. Well, they already can't. They're not allowed to vote. No, what they're doing here is they're collecting our data, voter data, and they're giving it to Peter Thiel and Palantir, okay, to do God knows what with it. But anyway, she rules against Donald Trump, and somehow her house catches on fire weeks later. Weird. No, not a coincidence. Not a coincidence in my mind, okay? And there's a reason that I don't think that this was an accident, okay? You have had right-wing terror attacks, I mean, that have been happening for quite some time. Look, you had Democratic Speaker of the Minnesota House of Representatives, Melissa Hortman, and her husband that were murdered back in June, okay? Then you had an arson attack at Democratic Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro's home back in April. Yet a number of judges that have ruled against Donald Trump who have been threatened and even attacked. All right? Look, Chief Judge for the District of Rhode Island, Jack McConnell, had told NPR back in August that his court had received more than 400 threatening voicemails, including credible death threats. Now, McConnell had issued a ruling blocking Donald Trump's freeze on federal aid earlier this year. Judges told NPR that they had received unsolicited anonymous pizza deliveries, which lets the target know that some very bad and possibly violent people know where you live. And it's an intimidation tactic. And by the way, let me issue a small correction on this story. This house didn't just catch on fire. It was firebombed. Okay? It blew up. There was explosions. So I'm being very clear about this. That's why also I believe that this was an act of right-wing terrorism. Okay? Look, the far right has been going after judges that rule against Donald Trump. This is not left-wing violence. This ain't no Antifa, okay? It ain't it. No, the buck stops with Donald Trump, okay? If it's his side that's doing it, they're probably doing it because of stuff like this. This was back in May, okay? Where he was like, Happy Memorial Day to all the scum that spent the last 4 years trying to destroy our country through warped radical left minds. Will allow 21 million people. Oh my God, this is unhinged, right? To illegally enter our country, many of them being criminals and the mentally insane. No, I know who's mentally insane. It's freaking you. Through an open border that only an incompetent president would approve. There was no open border, okay? Was no open border. And through judges who are on a mission to keep murderers, drug dealers, rapists, gang members, and release prisoners from all over the world in our country so they can rob, murder, and rape again. Let me just stop there. Okay. The only criminal here is in the White House. Okay. He is the criminal. Okay. He is the rapist. Okay. He is those things. He is robbing this country. That's what he's doing in the White House. And yet he has the balls to sit there and talk about, I'm stopping crime. No, you're not. You're doing the crime. You're doing the crime. Okay. All protected by these USA-hating judges. Okay, that's what he's calling the judges. USA-hating judges who suffer from an ideology that is sick and very dangerous for our country. Oh my God. He also called them monsters who want our country to go to hell. Gee, I wonder why people are attacking judges that rule against Donald Trump. No, but they're USA hating, obviously. Look, it's not just posting stuff that could encourage violence. They're doing lawfare as well. Justice Department in Trump's second term has moved to prosecute several judges that have pushed back on his agenda, on a lot of his illegal stuff that he is doing. In April, Hannah Dugan, a Wisconsin judge, was arrested for allegedly aiding an undocumented immigrant to leave the courthouse. In July, the DOJ filed a misconduct complaint against James Boasberg, chief judge of the U.S. District Court of Washington, D.C., over alleged comments that Boasberg made at a meeting of judges in March. Trump called for Boasberg, without actually naming him, to be impeached. Yeah. This judge, like many of the crooked judges I'm forced to appear before, should be impeached. Finally, Trump has just been ignoring the judges. In fact, there was a Washington Post examination of 165 lawsuits in which judges who ruled against Trump found, quote, widespread noncompliance with America's legal system by the administration. That's it. The White House, the so-called law and order president, is accused of defying or frustrating court oversight in nearly 35% of cases. Yeah. This administration is essentially lawless. They have been picking and choosing which orders they feel like following. And it's funny because I think back to the Biden administration, who couldn't even cancel $20,000 in student loan debt because Republicans, they ran to the court and blocked it. Oh, what can we do? There's nothing we can do. Can't cancel student loan debt because of the courts. And yet here are Republicans steamrolling the courts when they rule against them. Those same Republicans, by the way, who are like, oh, you got to respect the courts. You got to respect the court. You can't do the student loan, cancellation or forgiveness. You can't do any of that. No, the court has ruled. The court has ruled. They're the same ones who don't give a shit when Trump just steamrolls over the court and ignores over a third of all the rulings that were made against him. And this is while his supporters threaten and maybe even attack judges. Don't talk to me about left-wing violence and Antifa. No, when it's the far right doing the vast majority of it, even if this doesn't turn out to be a case of arson by a right-winger, which would honestly shock me at this point. Okay? No, it would shock me if it wasn't, all right? This has all the hallmarks, okay? No, you have the right wing in this country, the far right that is absolutely unhinged and is using violence, okay? Melissa Hortman and her husband are dead because of an unhinged right-winger. Paul Pelosi was viciously attacked in his home by a hammer-wielding right-winger. And you know what MAGA did? They laughed and laughed and laughed. Oh, you deserved it, right? They even concocted some phony, it must have been his gay lover. When this guy admits, no, I'm totally a Trump supporter. I'm totally a MAGA guy. And I was actually hoping that Nancy was home. These people are dangerous, okay? And yet our government, the Trump government, is lying and gaslighting us while blaming all that violence that is happening, some of which they absolutely own, on their political enemies. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe, hit the bell icon in order to get notified whenever a new video is released. And if you want to support independent, progressive media through this difficult time where it seems like everybody is shutting down, you can become a member on our YouTube page, you can become a subscriber on Facebook, or you can go to my Patreon. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf. Thank you.